Footsteps echoing on wet pavement can sound exactly like a ticking clock when a woman has a target on her back. She carried the darkest secrets of the city's most dangerous syndicate in her head. Walking away meant certain death. Getting into his enemy's car meant absolute war. Beatrice Alden was not the type of woman people expected to find at the right hand of the city's most ruthless crime boss. In a world populated by razor-thin supermodels draped over the arms of made men, Beatrice was undeniably, unapologetically fat. She had lush, heavy curves, a soft stomach she refused to hide beneath shapewear, and a brilliant, calculating mind that made her the most dangerous person in any room. For 5 years, she had been the executive assistant, crisis manager, and shadow accountant for Victor Carmichael. Victor was a man carved from ice and violence. As the head of the Carmichael syndicate, he controlled the eastern seaboard's shipping lanes with an iron fist. He was gorgeous in a terrifying way, sharp jaw, tailored Italian suits, eyes the color of a winter sky. He trusted no one. No one, except Beatrice. She knew the passwords to the encrypted offshore accounts in the Caymans. She knew which judges were on the payroll, and which state senators preferred their bribes in unmarked bills rather than cryptocurrency. But loyalty in the criminal underworld is a fragile pane of glass. And tonight, it shattered. The tension in Victor's penthouse office on the 42nd floor of the Carmichael Tower was suffocating. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, mirroring the violent storm brewing inside. A massive shipment of untraceable firearms, worth upward of $12 million, had just been intercepted by the feds at the O'Connor shipyards. Victor was pacing like a caged predator, running a hand through his dark hair. Across the mahogany desk, Beatrice stood her ground, holding a customized tablet containing the corrupted logistics files. "I told you to reroute the containers through the secondary shell company, B," Victor snarled, his voice dangerously low. He slammed his fist against the desk, rattling a crystal decanter of bourbon. "I gave you one explicit instruction this week." "And I did, Victor," Beatrice replied, her voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. She adjusted her thick-rimmed glasses, refusing to shrink under his glare. "I routed them through Apex Holdings. The leak didn't come from the paperwork. The leak came from your underboss. Thomas Rourke authorized an unencrypted phone call from the docks. I have the digital footprint right here." Victor stopped pacing. His eyes narrowed. Thomas Rourke was his childhood friend, a man who had taken a bullet for Victor 10 years ago. It was a blind spot Beatrice had warned him about a dozen times. "You're blaming Tommy." Victor took a slow step toward her, the temperature in the room seeming to drop 10 degrees. "Tommy is blood. You're an assistant who sits behind a desk and types numbers." The dismissal stung a sharp slap to her pride. "I am the assistant who keeps you out of a federal penitentiary," Beatrice shot back, her chin tilting up. "I warned you Tommy was getting sloppy. You didn't listen. And now $12 million is sitting in an FBI lockup." The truth was too much for Victor's bruised ego to handle. In a moment of blind, explosive rage, he lashed out, aiming to hurt her exactly where he knew she felt most vulnerable. He closed the distance between them, towering over her. "You think you're irreplaceable?" Victor's voice was a cruel, silken whisper. He looked her up and down, his gaze lingering on her soft, heavy figure with deliberate disdain. "Look at yourself, Beatrice. You take up space in my world because I allow it. Because I took pity on a smart, desperate girl who didn't fit into the corporate world. Who else would want you? Who else would look twice at you? You're here because I gave you a place. Don't ever mistake your usefulness for power." Silence dropped over the office like a lead weight. Beatrice felt the blood drain from her face. She had endured his late-night demands, his erratic moods, the constant looming threat of death from rival families. She had stitched up a knife wound on his shoulder on a Tuesday night and laundered $3 million by Thursday morning. She had loved him in some dark, twisted, unrequited way. But she respected herself more. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Slowly, deliberately, Beatrice reached up and unclipped the platinum key card from her lanyard, the card that gave her access to Victor's life, his empire, his secrets. She dropped it onto the mahogany desk. It landed with a soft, final click. "Goodbye, Victor," she said, her voice eerily calm. "If you walk out that door, you're dead to this organization," Victor warned, his eyes flashing with a mix of shock and fury. He hadn't thought she would actually do it. He thought she was too dependent on him. "I'm already dead to you," Beatrice said. She turned on her heel, her footsteps steady on the hardwood floor, and walked out of the penthouse, leaving the king of the eastern seaboard standing completely alone. The streets of the city were unforgiving. The rain had turned into a torrential downpour, slicking the cobblestones of the warehouse district where Beatrice wandered. She had left her company car, her company phone, her company credit cards on her desk, alongside the keycard. She was smart enough to know Victor tracked everything. Shivering in her trench coat, Beatrice sought refuge under the rotting awning of a closed deli. Her mind raced. She was a liability now, a woman who knew everything about the Carmichael syndicate, wandering the streets unprotected. Victor's men would be looking for her within the hour, not to bring her back, but to silence her. That was the rule of this life. Nobody just resigned from the mafia. She checked her pockets. $32 in cash and a burner phone she kept for absolute emergencies. She needed a plan, and she needed one fast. Suddenly, the heavy hum of a high-performance engine cut through the sound of the rain. A sleek black Maybach glided down the empty street, its tires hissing against the wet asphalt. The car didn't speed past. Instead, it slowed to a crawl, stopping directly in front of the deli. Beatrice's breath hitched. Victor's men. She backed up against the cold brick wall, looking around frantically for an escape route. But the alleyway beside the deli was blocked by a chain-link fence. The rear passenger door swung open. A man stepped out, unfurling a massive black umbrella. But it wasn't Thomas Rourke. And it wasn't one of Victor's mindless enforcers. It was Gabriel Mercer. Beatrice felt a cold spike of pure terror pierce her chest. Gabriel Mercer was the head of the West Side Coalition, Victor Carmichael's most hated and lethal rival. The two syndicates had been locked in a bloody turf war for 3 years. Mercer was known as the Architect, a man who destroyed his enemies not with brute force, but with terrifying, calculated precision. He was devastatingly handsome, with sharp cheekbones, a neatly trimmed beard, and dark, assessing eyes that missed absolutely nothing. He wore a 3-piece charcoal suit that looked completely untouched by the miserable weather. Mercer walked slowly toward the curb, stopping just at the edge of the awning. He didn't draw a weapon. He simply tilted the umbrella back and looked at her. "Beatrice Alden," Gabriel said, his voice a rich, smooth baritone that sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "I must admit, when my scouts told me Victor Carmichael's shadow was walking the streets alone in the rain, I thought they were hallucinating." "What do you want, Mercer?" Beatrice demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. She crossed her arms over her chest, fiercely aware of her wet clothes clinging to her curves. "To offer you a ride," Gabriel replied, gesturing toward the warm, dimly lit interior of the Maybach. "And perhaps a mutually beneficial arrangement." "If you think you can kidnap me for ransom, you're wasting your time," Beatrice said bitterly, a fresh wave of hurt washing over her. "Victor doesn't care. I don't work for him anymore." Gabriel's dark eyes flared with genuine surprise, followed quickly by a dangerous, predatory gleam. "You walked away? From Carmichael?" "I did." Gabriel let out a low whistle. "Then you're in far more danger than I anticipated. Victor doesn't let loose ends breathe, Beatrice. And you are the biggest loose end in this city." He stepped closer, entering the space beneath the awning, close enough now that she could smell his cologne, sandalwood, and something distinctly sharp. "Get in the car," Gabriel said, his tone softening just a fraction, losing its mocking edge. "Why would I go anywhere with you?" Beatrice challenged. "You're just as bad as he is." "Probably." But right now, you have exactly two options, Gabriel stated, holding up two fingers. Option 1, you stay here, you freeze, and within 45 minutes, Thomas Rourke pulls up and puts a bullet in your brilliant head. Option 2, you get in my car. I give you a warm blanket, a cup of tea, and my absolute protection. Protection comes with a price, she whispered. Gabriel's gaze dropped briefly to her lips, then swept over her full, rain-soaked figure. There was no disgust in his eyes. No dismissal. Instead, there was a heavy, burning appreciation that made Beatrice's breath catch in her throat. I am a businessman, Beatrice. I know exactly how valuable you are. I know you're the brains behind Victor's logistics. I know you're the one who beat my hackers during the port acquisition last year. He leaned in closer. I respect a brilliant mind, and I appreciate a beautiful woman. I'm offering you shelter. What you do with it is up to you. A beautiful woman. Victor had spent 5 years making her feel like a burdensome afterthought. In 5 minutes, his deadliest rival was looking at her like she was a queen. Beatrice looked down the dark, empty street, then back at the luxurious car. Survival instinct warred with loyalty, but loyalty had died in Victor's office. If you try to touch me, or force me to give up his ledgers, I will crash your entire financial network before you can blink, Beatrice warned him, stepping out from the awning. Gabriel Mercer smiled, a slow, wicked curve of his lips. He stepped aside, holding the umbrella over her head to shield her from the storm. I would expect nothing less, Miss Alden. After you. She slid into the leather seats of the Maybach. As the heavy door shut, sealing her into the quiet, climate-controlled cabin with the enemy, Beatrice realized one terrifying truth. She hadn't just walked away from the mafia. She had just ignited the biggest gang war this city had ever seen. The Maybach pulled into a subterranean garage beneath a towering, ultra-luxury residential building on Manhattan's Billionaires Row. Beatrice knew this building. She had once wired a down payment for a penthouse here on behalf of a corrupt alderman. She had never expected to be stepping out onto its private, polished elevator bank alongside Gabriel Mercer. Gabriel led her into a private elevator, swiping a biometric scanner that read his fingerprint. The doors closed silently. My personal residence, Gabriel explained, loosening his silk tie. The security is entirely decentralized and off the grid. Victor's hounds could sniff around the lobby for a decade and never find a trace of you. When the doors opened, Beatrice stepped into a fortress of glass, steel, and warm mahogany. It was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic, storming view of Central Park, the city lights bleeding through the rain like watercolors. But Beatrice's analytical mind immediately catalogued the tactical advantages: bulletproof reinforced glass, strategic choke points in the hallway, 2 heavily armed guards standing discreetly near the service entrance, standard-issue Glock 19s holstered at their sides. Gabriel gestured to a set of double doors. There's a guest suite through there. A hot shower, dry clothes, a secure line if there's anyone outside this life you need to contact. Take your time. We have much to discuss. Beatrice hesitated, gripping the edges of her soaked trench coat. Why are you doing this, Mercer? You don't know for sure I won't walk out of here tomorrow and sell your floor plans to the highest bidder. Gabriel stopped, turning to face her. The ambient light of the city cast sharp shadows across his face. Because I know exactly who you are, Beatrice. I've spent 2 years studying Victor Carmichael's rise. On paper, Victor is a brute with a trust fund. Yet his logistics, his shell companies in the Caymans, his routing through Apex Holdings, it was all too elegant. It was the work of a virtuoso. It took my best intelligence gatherers 6 months to realize the architect behind Carmichael's empire was his assistant. He stepped closer, his dark eyes taking in her full figure, still drenched from the rain. Victor is a fool who looks at a diamond and complains about the weight of the stone. I, however, know a masterpiece when I see one. A hot flush crept up Beatrice's neck. She wasn't used to men like Gabriel Mercer looking at her with such raw, unmasked reverence. An hour later, Beatrice emerged from the guest suite. The shower had washed away the cold dread of the evening. To her immense surprise, the closet hadn't been stocked with the impossibly tiny, restrictive garments that usually populated mafia-safe houses. Instead, she found a beautifully tailored emerald green velvet wrap dress that draped perfectly over her heavy curves, highlighting the softness of her stomach and the swell of her hips without hiding them. She found Gabriel in his sprawling home office, pouring 2 glasses of Macallan 18 single malt scotch. "Better?" he asked, handing her a crystal tumbler. He looked at her, and for a split second, the cold, calculating mafia boss vanished, replaced by a man genuinely captivated by the woman standing before him. "Green is definitely your color." "Thank you," she murmured, taking a sip. The scotch burned pleasantly down her throat. "So, we're at war," she said. "We are," Gabriel agreed, leaning against the edge of his massive oak desk. "Victor discovered you were missing 30 minutes after you left. My mole's inside the Carmichael Syndicate report. He's completely unhinged. He's locked down the O'Connor shipyards and put a $2 million bounty on your head." Beatrice scoffed, swirling the amber liquid in her glass. $2 million? He's underestimating my value again. Gabriel let out a rich, genuine laugh. "I completely agree. Which is why I need you to look at something." He turned a sleek laptop toward her. "If you're truly done with Victor, I want you to work with me." "Not for me, Beatrice." "With me." Beatrice walked over and looked at the screen. It was Gabriel's internal ledger for a massive real estate laundering operation based out of Miami. She scanned the columns of numbers, her mind falling into its natural, brilliant rhythm. Within 60 seconds, she tapped the screen. "You have a structural leak," Beatrice said, her voice dropping into its professional cadence. "Right here. Your offshore routing through the Panamanian banks is bouncing off a server that FinCEN flagged 3 months ago. If you push this next $3 million wire through, the IRS Criminal Investigation Division will freeze the account within 48 hours. Gabriel stared at her, utterly silent. Then a slow, predatory smile spread across his face. "My chief financial officer approved that route yesterday." "Your chief financial officer is an idiot," Beatrice said bluntly. "He's fired as of tomorrow morning," Gabriel replied smoothly. He reached out, his knuckles lightly brushing against her hand on the desk. A jolt of electricity sparked between them. "I need a partner, Beatrice. Someone who sees the board the way I do. If you help me dismantle Victor Carmichael, you take 50% of his eastern seaboard territory." Before Beatrice could answer, Gabriel's encrypted secure phone, a device running a heavily modified version of an encrypted messaging app, buzzed violently against the desk. Gabriel picked it up, his expression hardening as he read the incoming message. He turned the screen so Beatrice could see it. "Sender, unknown, I know you have her, Mercer. You have 24 hours to bring my property to the neutral ground at the Pierre Hotel. If you don't, I burn the west side to the ground. Nobody takes what is mine." Beatrice's blood ran cold, but she forced her spine to straighten. Victor was predictable in his rage. He still thought of her as property. He still thought he held all the cards. "What do you want to do?" Gabriel asked softly, stepping close enough that the warmth of his body radiated against hers. He wasn't commanding her. He was giving her the power. Beatrice looked at the threatening message, then up into Gabriel's dark, steady eyes. She thought of the 5 years of disrespect, the constant belittling, the way Victor had weaponized her weight and her insecurities against her. "We go to the Pierre," Beatrice said, a dangerous smirk playing on her lips, "because Victor doesn't know it yet, but he's already a dead man walking." Neutral ground in the underworld was sacred. And the Pierre Hotel, a luxurious, historic landmark overlooking Central Park, had long been the favored location for sit-downs between warring syndicates. The grand ballroom had been cleared out, rented under a dummy corporation. The atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. On one side of the massive mahogany table sat Victor Carmichael, flanked by his fiercely loyal but dangerously incompetent underboss, Thomas Rourke, and 4 heavily armed enforcers. Victor looked haggard. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. The loss of his $12 million shipment and his most valuable asset had taken a brutal toll in under 24 hours. On the other side of the room, the double doors opened. Gabriel Mercer walked in with the casual, terrifying grace of a predator who already knew he had won the hunt. But he wasn't leading the charge. He walked one half step behind Beatrice Alden. Beatrice looked breathtaking. She wore a sharp, tailored black suit that hugged her curves flawlessly, her hair swept up in an elegant twist, a bold red lip painting her mouth. She didn't look like an assistant. She looked like a queen. Gabriel's men, carrying concealed submachine guns, fanned out behind them, forming an impenetrable wall. Victor stood up, slamming his hands flat on the table. "You actually brought her. Good. Get over here, B. Playtime is over." Beatrice didn't flinch. She pulled out a chair opposite Victor and sat down slowly, crossing her legs. Gabriel remained standing behind her, a silent, lethal guardian. "I don't belong to you, Victor," Beatrice said, her voice echoing clearly through the cavernous ballroom. "I resigned." "You don't resign from this family," Victor roared, his composure cracking. "You think you can run to the snake? He doesn't want you, Beatrice. He wants my ledgers. The second he has my account numbers, he'll dump you in the river." Gabriel's hand came to rest gently on Beatrice's shoulder, his thumb stroking the fabric of her jacket in a gesture of profound possession and respect. "You project your own failures onto me, Victor," Gabriel said smoothly. "I don't need your ledgers. Beatrice is the prize. Her mind is worth 10 of your syndicates. But you were always too blind to see what was right in front of you." Thomas Rourke sneered, stepping forward. "She's a glorified secretary, Mercer. You want her? Keep her. We just want our money back. Hand over the master decryption keys, B, or we start shooting." In a flash of movement so fast it was almost a blur, Gabriel drew his weapon and leveled it squarely between Tommy Rourke's eyes. "Speak to her with disrespect one more time, Thomas, and they'll be cleaning your brains off the chandeliers." "Stand down, Mercer," Victor yelled, drawing his own weapon, instantly triggering a standoff as a dozen guns were drawn across the room. "Everyone, put your guns away," Beatrice commanded. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. Surprisingly, Gabriel lowered his weapon first, honoring her command. Slowly, Victor's men followed suit. Beatrice leaned forward, interlacing her fingers on the table. "You want the master decryption keys, Victor. You want to access the Cayman accounts, to recoup the $12 million Tommy lost you at the shipyards. Give them to me, B," Victor demanded, his voice desperate. "Give me the keys, and I'll let you walk away with him. I swear it." Beatrice smiled, a cold, razor-sharp expression that made Victor physically recoil. "You always thought I was just typing numbers, Victor. But you forgot I built your entire digital infrastructure. I built the walls, the doors, and the locks." She pulled a sleek tablet from her leather briefcase and slid it across the table. Victor frowned, picking it up. "When I left my key card on your desk yesterday," Beatrice explained calmly, "I didn't just walk away. I initiated a protocol, a failsafe I built 3 years ago, specifically for the day you decided my loyalty wasn't worth your respect." Victor stared at the screen. Lines of code were rapidly executing. Red warnings flashed across the display. Beatrice outlined the destruction of his empire with clinical precision. Trigger 1, the moment Tommy tried to log into the Cayman servers from an unverified IP address this morning, which I knew he would, because he doesn't read the security memos, the system locked. Trigger 2, once the system locked, a localized script wiped all backup drives in the Carmichael Tower. Your digital footprint is gone. Trigger 3, 30 seconds ago, when I crossed the threshold of this hotel, my smartwatch pinged a remote server. The complete, unencrypted ledgers of the Carmichael Syndicate, including your bribes to federal judges, were anonymously emailed to the FBI director and the front-page editors of the New York Times. Silence fell over the room like a guillotine. Victor's face turned completely ashen. The tablet slipped from his trembling fingers, clattering onto the mahogany table. You destroyed me. No, Victor, Beatrice said softly, standing up. You destroyed yourself. You trusted Tommy over the woman who kept you alive. You treated me like a burden, when I was the only thing holding up your throne. Sirens wailed in the distance, a faint sound filtering through the heavy glass windows of the Pierre. The sound was growing louder, multiplying by the second. The feds were already swarming the Carmichael Tower, and they would be here next. Tommy, Victor whispered, turning to his underboss in blind, panicked rage. You triggered the lock. I just wanted to check the balance, boss, Tommy stammered, backing away. We need to leave. Now, Gabriel said, his hand lightly touching Beatrice's waist. Victor lunged across the table, drawing his gun, fully intending to take Beatrice down with him. But Gabriel was faster. Two suppressed shots rang out, hitting Victor squarely in the shoulder and knee. The crime boss collapsed to the floor in a heap of blood and tailored wool, screaming in agony. His enforcers, realizing their empire was gone and the police seconds away, dropped their weapons and bolted for the service elevators. Gabriel stood over Victor, his gun still smoking. I'd kill you, Victor. But watching you rot in a federal penitentiary for the rest of your life, knowing a woman you discarded outsmarted you, that's a much sweeter punishment. Gabriel turned to Beatrice, offering her his arm. She looked down at Victor one last time, the man she had once foolishly loved, now entirely broken, and felt absolutely nothing but relief. She looped her arm through Gabriel's. Together, they walked out of the grand ballroom, leaving the ruins of the Carmichael Syndicate behind them. As they stepped into the waiting Maybach in the underground garage, the rain had finally stopped. The city felt clean, washed of its old sins, ready for a new reign. Gabriel poured 2 glasses of champagne from the car's console, handing one to Beatrice. He gently touched his glass to hers. To the new queen of the eastern seaboard, he murmured, his gaze dropping to her lips, burning with a promise that went far beyond business. Beatrice smiled, her heavy curves settling comfortably against the plush leather, resting her head against Gabriel's shoulder. To new partnerships, she replied. She had walked away with nothing but the clothes on her back. But tonight, she owned the entire city. Did you love this story of betrayal, brilliant revenge, and mafia romance? If Beatrice's ultimate checkmate had you on the edge of your seat, smash the like button. Don't forget to share this video with your fellow romance and drama lovers, and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling original stories every week. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a plot twist. Let us know in the comments, what would you have done in Beatrice's shoes?